Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have an unboxing of the POCO F6 Pro. Let's get started. At the time of recording this video, I don't know its price, but I guess it will be an ultra-competitive price knowing everything POCO does with the F series. Anyway, in the review we will do the detailed analysis based on its price, but I am more than sure it will be very competitive. Join me in uncovering this box to find out what's inside. First, note that this is the version with 12 GB of RAM and 256 GB of storage. Let's take it out of its box and then we can get to know it. And notice that the first thing we find is this envelope that's probably going to have some documentation in it. Well, it also comes with the key to remove the tray, which is always important. But as I was saying, it has the usual documentation, and in this case it does include a case that, as POCO has been doing lately, that is not going to be transparent but completely solid, in this case in a very dark gray tone, and it already lets us see the window that we'll have for the camera module. In a moment we see how it looks put on. Here we have the device. Let's take a look at the specifications that the manufacturer wants to highlight. As you can see, it has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. Right off the bat, it comes with a fully flagship processor, so it's sure to have sky-high performance. In addition, it supports hypercharge charging of 120 watts. Again, that's a super good point. Also notice that the display is of a higher resolution than Full HD. In this case, it's called WQHD+. With 120 Hz, they call it Flow AMOLED. We're also going to see very high specs here. Also, it says it has triple camera with optical stabilization. It says triple 50 megapixel camera here, but I think it's not going to be 50 megapixel all three cameras. It's simply a way of attracting attention. And finally, it says it has a premium design with a metal frame. That's something important also, because in the upper mid-range, Samsung already started putting metal frame, and it looks like POCO doesn't want to be left behind. Let's get it out there. And look, as you notice, it does have a rather peculiar design. I must say that to the touch it feels smooth. It gives the feeling of a texture, even though it's completely smooth to the touch. Also notice that it has some gold-colored highlights for the camera rings. So it's a bit sleeker design than what POCO had us used to. Although it still retains this top window, which I personally really dislike, but that's simply a matter of personal taste. That's okay. Let me turn on the device and we'll see what else comes in the box. As you can see, there is the 120 watt charger, which although it is a very fast charger, it could be a bit cumbersome to carry such a large charger. It's actually a bit heavy and cumbersome. So I think there are two teams at the moment, who prefers fast charging even if their charger is very huge, and who prefers a charging still not so fast but with a charger obviously a little more compact and comfortable to carry. Also, it comes with the USB-A connector instead of USB-C, so it still doesn't feel so modern experience in the cable sense. It comes with an orange highlight so that you always remember to use the original cable in conjunction with this charger. Because if you use a cable that's not original, it's possibly not gauge enough to transmit this much current. So let me put this away and we'll come back and take a look at the cell phone. I already have here in my hands the device, so let's quickly know some of its specifications. The screen, like all Xiaomi, 6.67 inches, but in this case with WQHD plus resolution, with 120 Hz in its refresh rate and AMOLED technology. Although by default it brings configured Full HD plus resolution. But you could tell the whole system to go up to this resolution, which is 3200 by 1440 pixels. The refresh rate, if it will be adapting, or specifically you can select if you want 60 or 120 Hz. Fortunately, it does have stereo sound with one speaker at the bottom and the other speaker in the earpiece area for calls. So it complements the sound experience very well, although it's probably not an exaggerated sound quality, but it's nice to have stereo sound. And as you notice, it comes with the metal frame that gives it a much more premium touch when you hold it in your hand, and obviously also a higher level of resistance against any fall. The front camera, like all Xiaomi, is 16 megapixels with f2.4 aperture and fixed focus. It goes many generations that Xiaomi offers us the same front camera, although for many people it can still be a good thing. Before taking the picture, it still looks very overexposed in some areas, but after taking the picture, it does a good processing. I think it won't be the most spectacular front camera in the range, but it's still a camera that delivers well. On the back, we have 50 megapixel main camera with f1.6 aperture. It also has optical stabilization and autofocus. There will also be the 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera with f2.2 aperture and fixed focus. And finally, a 2 megapixel macro camera with f2.4 aperture and fixed focus. So it looks like it's not going to stand out too much in the photographic system. Additionally, we have the built-in flash in another circle, but let's review some of the results very quickly. This is a picture with the ultra-wide camera, so with 8 megapixels you still don't get as much detail, but I still think for a good number of people it would be an acceptable picture. This is the photograph with the main camera. We gain a little more saturation in the colors, even a lot more detail since the photo is 12 megapixels, or specifically 12.5 megapixels in automatic mode. Although obviously if you want to take 50 megapixel photos, you could also enable that special mode. This is the 2x zoom photograph to see if it manages to maintain optical quality apparently still at this focal length. This is a photograph with 5x zoom and the last one has 10x, where the zoom is obviously not as detailed, but I think it is not a very focused device in cameras. It still manages to give us an acceptable quality photograph in this range. This is the photograph with the macro camera that, although it gives us a fairly good level of detail in this type of photographs of small objects, the color is not quite accurate. Notice how the main camera gives us a much more accurate color, although it has a very uneven focus. So even with 2x digital zoom, we still have a blur that is not so uniform, especially on the sides, you will notice it. So I think the macro camera could become a bit useful, although more because of the limitations of the main camera than on its own merits. And here you are looking at the portrait photograph. Note that it has good foreground detection. The background is well out of focus, although the more demanding in portrait photography will notice that the perspective is not very similar to what you would get with a telephoto lens for portraits. Since it only allows us to take the picture with the main camera without any zoom, so it is not one of the most focused portrait lenses, although portraits for the less demanding ones come out well. The device does have the ability to record video in 4K, but only with the main camera. So I think it does not get to stand out too much in video either. I think that in general, POCO has never been a brand that gets to stand out a lot in photography or video, and this device continues with that same trend. The battery is 5000 milliamps with support for 120 watts charging with charger included in the box. So the charging power, as I had already anticipated, is one of its most attractive and strongest points. The device has 256 gigabytes of storage and 12 gigabytes of RAM. Although there will probably be more versions available in different regions, so for that pay attention to the version that came to your country. It comes with Android 14 and HyperOS, so it has the latest from both Android and Xiaomi. I guess the experience will be good without too many bugs, at least I hope so. And the processor is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, so let's run a benchmark because it's a completely high-end processor and it's sure to be the most attractive thing about this device, but let's wait for its results. And ready here we have the results: 1426 on single core and 4696 on multi-core, indicating us a bit low scores considering it's the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. This processor has been able to give higher scores, but in this model it doesn't seem to be giving its all. Although remember, this is just a first look at the actual performance we will see in the review. For now, we have reached the end of this video. If you liked it, you know you can tell us, and we'll see you next time.